Hello, welcome to the May 3rd edition of This Week in South Carolina in Session. I'm Gavin Jackson outside the State House here in Columbia. Well, we are wrapping up the second to last week of the legislative session, and the Senate is still debating the abortion ban bill right now. The House adjourned earlier today, but they were in session until a little bit after midnight last night. So things are getting crazy down here, as you might imagine, because they are cramming some things through. Last night, the House was debating budget amendments. They wrapped all those up yesterday evening, sent the budget back to the Senate, but the Senate has not taken up the budget yet because they are still talking about the dismemberment abortion ban bill, which has now transformed into essentially the personhood bill, which would have essentially outlaw virtually all abortions in the state of South Carolina at this point. So it's been a very interesting 24 hours here in Columbia, and just want to walk you through a little bit about where we left you off yesterday. Yesterday evening, Wednesday evening, Senator Brad Hutto, Democrat from Orangeburg, began the filibuster that he had been talking about lodging ever since Senator Richard Cash started pushing his dismemberment abortion ban bill that got special order status here in the Senate. So we did see the lawmakers go back and forth yesterday a good bit, but today obviously a little bit longer. But what we saw last night was when Senator Hutto amended the bill to make it into the personhood bill, essentially making it a poison pill bill at this point that would outlaw all abortions in the state, which Republicans don't want. A lot of Republicans were on board with just the dismemberment abortion ban bill, which would outlaw this rarely used legal procedure used when the woman's life is in danger, usually after the first trimester, and there's risk for the mother dying or other issues. So it's a rarely used procedure in the state of South Carolina. Only about 20 procedures out of more than 5,700 in 2016. So very rarely used, but again, a lot of abortion opponents want this gone, and they do have the votes to do that. However, like we said, Senator Hutto did change the bill Wednesday evening to basically outlaw all abortions. Now, he's a Democrat from Orangeburg. He knows what he was doing. We have a quote from him later on showing that he knows what he wanted to get this bill, because he's saying Republicans should just do what they want to do. They want to get a bill essentially signed into law that could essentially challenge Roe versus Wade, the landmark abortion case. So they want something that can get through the courts in hopes of overturning Roe v. Wade in the current legal landscape. So that's the tactic right now. That's where we are. And right now, that we did see that kind of that gets second reading on Wednesday evening. Usually second reading means that the bill is basically on its way to becoming law or the next chamber. But today we are in another filibuster situation, and that was with Senator Marlon Kimpson keeping the floor all day today, and he was talking on the third reading of the bill. Now, we had cloture yesterday, which was the move to sit down Senator Hutto, and they had cloture invoked. The Republicans invoked this measure to sit down Senator Hutto. They only needed 24 votes. They had 25. They got it. So then they started taking all the amendments that were on the bill, and that's why we saw that extended debate. Today is different. Today we are on third reading of the bill. You need 3/5 of the senators to sit down someone who's launching a filibuster right now. We've seen multiple attempts lodged by Senator Brad Hutto to point out that the Republicans do not have the votes to sit down Democrats who are currently filibustering, because instead of just 24 votes today, the Republicans need 26 votes, and right now we're just not there yet. So we've had 2 votes so far. The Democrats are still talking. We just saw Senate President Pro Tem Hugh Leatherman make a motion that passed that would actually bring senators back in on Friday. They don't come in on Friday. They're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday people. They don't even go this long on Thursdays. So pretty remarkable to see that they are going to be in here on Friday, and that's because there are only 3 days left after today. Now, 4 days if you include Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, sine die is Thursday next week. So time is ticking. This bill is clogging up the Senate calendar. They knew that this would be the case, but Democrats are dug on this, as are Republicans. So we don't even know how long they're going to go tonight, but they will be back tomorrow morning, Friday morning, to debate this. And we'll be carrying that live on SCTV. You can tune in on television or scstatehouse.gov to watch those proceedings as they go live. But right now we're going to get into some of the action that we saw today. And we also caught up with Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey before all this debate started. And we also caught up with Senator Hutto before the debate started for some comments. And Senator Massey also gave us some great insight about what he expects hopefully to come out next week, which could be the superintendent constitutional amendment ballot measure. So that bill has been stuck over in the Senate, but ever since the House moved that measure earlier this week, dealing with the qualifications for the superintendent of education, should that position become appointed by the governor, which is required by a ballot referendum. So that measure, dealing with qualifications, has moved to the governor's desk. That has signaled to the Senate that we need to move this ballot measure, because in order to change the Constitution to make it so that the governor can appoint the superintendent of education, they do need to put that before the voters. So that bill has been in the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's now on the Senate floor. And Senator Shane Massey, the majority leader, says he hopes to have that on special order next week. So that will be the next big debate we could see next week. So let's get into it right now. Here's some clips from today and Senator Massey.
Now, the bill only received second reading in the Senate. So in order to become a law, of course, it has to receive a third reading. It has to go back to the House. The House would have to adopt that. Then the governor would have to sign it. So I don't think we're maybe not as close as some people might think, but we have 4 days left, and it's certainly a possibility. So my message is to everybody who's concerned about this is you better get involved.
Sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. I think there's nothing wrong with that bill, and any bill that reduces abortions in South Carolina, I am for, and I will sign.
He was trying to make it unconstitutional, but I think to some people on the right, a lot of Republicans kind of embraced that because the idea was to try to get a challenge to Roe v. Wade anyway, and Senator Hutto has provided that opportunity.
If you're for prohibiting abortions in this state, except for life of the mother, rape, or incest, this is going to give you the case that you can appeal, and it's a pure case. It doesn't have any of the other, it doesn't have any prosecution of doctors in here, doesn't have any suing people over this. It's just a straight up that it's prohibited. Cannot do it. It's
Senator from Greenville for what?
So this is your amendment. You drafted this amendment.
I did.
And you put it up.
I did.
Are you going to vote for it?
Am I going to vote for it?
Yeah.
Of course not.
So it's a gotcha vote.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make that clear to the world that was watching. Just want to make that clear.
That's why I wanted you in here.
Okay, great. Let's have a vote.
Look, I'm
the
not
folks I serve, they understand gotcha votes.
I'm not got you behind your back. I'm a got you in your face.
You know, that's really what I like about you, Senator. Right. I really do.
So
we, as a government, are trying to make these decisions for a woman and her family with whomever she consults, whether it's her boyfriend, her husband. That's her business.
But do you believe that there's enough technology today that if a couple want to avoid pregnancy, there's enough technology to avoid a pregnancy with all the birth control that exists? And even without the birth control pills, there's plenty of ways to avoid. And if a young lady does get pregnant, I think both parties are just as guilty.
There are contraceptives, but Senator, this bill is banning contraceptives, as I understand it. And the senator from Collington put up an amendment that would decrease some sexual activity. She wanted men to undergo the same level of scrutiny that we are trying to tell women to go by banning many of the sexual enhancement performance drugs. And we skated on the question. We used a procedural motion to deny debate on the issue. So we have, you know, we are having a conversation about contraceptives, preventative devices, including birth control. I don't think abortion should be used that way, but it's not our role here in this body to tell a woman how to make a decision that has been constitutionally protected.
But that young lady, don't you agree that young lady, before she had sex with a young man, don't you believe that she should have had some responsibility there to make sure that there was contraception used of some sort?
Well,
I mean, there's responsibility.
Again, Senator,
we're avoiding the responsibility, don't you think, of the couple having sex? I think when you choose to have sex, don't you believe that there's responsibility on both sides, and they can avoid?
It's a big decision. It's a big decision, but we as a government shouldn't be in people's bedrooms. That's my only point. People make poor decisions, right? Senator?
So
people,
why should society,
Senator,
why do you think society should have to pay for their poor decisions?
People make poor decisions.
I agree with you.
You know that, right?
I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm hoping that we can move on to superintendent of education being an appointed position rather than elected. I also hope that we'll be able to move on some of the VC summer related bills. I think we've gotten the time, the opportunity to do that. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take some work, but I think we can get there. Constitutional amendment. So there were two bills on the two pieces of legislation. The first one was, which we passed early last year, that dealt with qualifications for what the superintendent of education would have to have. We passed that last year. The House just agreed with that earlier this week, last week, sometime recently. So the next step is to get the constitutional amendment voted on and get it out so people can vote on it. The House has already passed that. It was pulled out of Judiciary Committee. It was read today. I'm going to make a motion to set it for special order for next week. So hopefully we can get to that on Tuesday.
And that wraps up our Thursday here at the State House. Again, the Senate is still in session as I'm taping this, and they will be back in on Friday to continue this debate about the abortion bill that has now morphed into basically a bill that would outlaw all abortions in the state of South Carolina, not just the dismemberment abortions that started off this whole debate, this whole legislation rather. So regardless of what happens, even if they pass it out tomorrow, if they approve it, this bill still has to go back to the House, where they've already said that they're going to reject it in its current form. So, is all this for nothing? We'll see, but that's basically where things go. They'll reject it, the House will reject it, so they say right now in its current form, which will send the bill to a conference committee, which will be made up of 3 House members and 3 senators. They could extend past sine die, which is next Thursday, the last day of session, when bills die, if they're not sent to the governor. They could extend that, and if it goes to a conference committee, we don't know the future of that at that point. So that's really kind of the state of things right now. A lot of debate and really up in the air where it might take us. So stay with ETV throughout the remaining days of the legislative session. We bring you live updates. We try to at least at 7 p.m. a little bit later this week on SCTV's Facebook page, our YouTube page, and my Twitter account at Gavin Jackson. You can also check out scetv.org to find the State House Daybook every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, where we give you the schedule about what's going on up here, when it's going on, the governor's schedule, Supreme Court schedule when they're in session, as well as top news headlines from around the state. Also, you can listen to State House Week on South Carolina Public Radio every Friday with Russ McKinney. You can also listen to my podcast, South Carolina Lead, which comes out every Tuesday, and when I sit down with reporters who cover the big stories up here every week, we get a little bit more context, we go behind the headlines to give you some more insight about what's happening with those stories. So stay tuned. We have 3 more days, 4 more if you're counting tomorrow for the Senate, until May 10th, the last day of session. I'm Gavin Jackson up here in Columbia.